What's going on, YouTube? Northeast Ohio here for another little video before this NBA season gets a rolling and this train leaves the station. So, today we are going to talk about some last minute budget buys. Now, these guys are probably a little bit more risky because they could easily just be in dollar bins a month into the season, but they also have high upside if they actually hit, because your entry point is extremely low. We're going to talk about six guys today, I think. One, two, three. Yeah, six guys. And we're going to talk raw base cards, Prism, nothing graded. And the price points are all going to be sub $15. So you can get into these guys pretty cheap. It'll end up being low risk with some potentially nice reward on it. So obviously, once the season starts, who the hell knows what's going to happen. But we talk a lot about graded cards and mid. I usually focus more on, I'm going to say, mid-tier stuff, $100 to $500. So I wanted to kind of throw something out there for the budget-friendly people that maybe want to take some swings with, just understand that these types of players are guys that could blow up in your face. But maybe there's some guys I didn't mention on here that fall into the same category. So real quick before we get into it, like, comment, sub, market movers links, discount code down below. Star Stock promotion is still running. You deposit $10, use my promo code, you get $10, I get $10. That's still happening. Star Stock is going to be wild. We're going to talk more about that, I think, later in the week. I think my next video is going to be on a little preseason prep talk here, guys. You got to be ready for the shenanigans. So, all right, let's get into it. Enough nonsense, click like buttons and stuff. All right, we got about six players. A couple of these guys you heard me talk about before, with that being number one. We're gonna start in market movers, but we're just gonna move over to 130 point because a lot of these guys, their cards are in market movers, but they're graded, and I specifically want to talk about ungraded, just because of the lower level entry point. And for these guys, I'm not necessarily advocating that you buy and grade them. You can. Most of these guys graded go between $170 to $150, depending on the player. But for the purposes of this, I'm just talking to get these guys for around $5 to $15, and just sit on them for a couple months and see what happens. Or in some cases, not even a couple months, as fast as this market tends to move sometimes. So, all right. Number one, it's Northeast Ohio Sports Cards. We got to start with a Cav, and I talk about this guy all the time, and that is KPJ. KPJ was a darling of the hobby last year. He had some pretty nice little showings. I believe of the Cavs' young players, he is the best. I like him better than Sexton. I like him better than Garland. I think he has the highest upside by far, and you're getting a discount because he had guns and weed in his car. Hey, people make mistakes. It's all good. NBA is not even testing for weed anymore, and guns and cars are legal in Ohio. He wasn't permitted. That makes it a little bit trickier, but it is what it is. So, he got charged. It's probably going to get minor. He'll probably get community service and a fine, and he'll probably be on the court. I doubt he even gets suspended a single game. I don't think he'll be starting, but he is basically their sixth man, and he was putting up 20-point games in flashes last year. And when he did, his cards popped off. I think you were getting a very nice discount on him because of the news. So I would not hesitate to load up on KPJ. This is his base Prism. It is going for about $5 to $6, give or take. For that price, I would load up on them, sit on them, and see what happens. I think this is very easily one that could be $5, and if he comes out and has a couple big games off the bench in the first week, that this thing will triple to quadruple in a week if he plays well. Once again, all these guys are if they play well. If he gets into trouble again and does something stupid and doesn't play well, he could be in the 50-cent bin by February. I don't think that's going to happen. I have a ton of KPJ. So I am big on his bandwagon. I got in a little bit cheaper than this because I bought it all when Prism first came out because I liked him right from the get. So anyway, KPJ is number one, and we were actually going to stick with the Cavs for number two. and talk about Darius Garland. Um, Garland was the 5th pick in the draft last year, and he basically didn't play in college. He played a couple games, looked great, got hurt, was out for his entire college season, got drafted, and really just never got going. I think he was still trying to play catch up from missing the year of basketball. And all reports are now, once again, you could take this stuff with a grain of salt, is that he is the best looking Cav in the pre-camp workouts and the stuff that they did in the fall, et cetera, et cetera. Considering where his prices are, which you could see on the screen here, his base prisms are about $5 or $6, maybe up to $8. You could get his stuff pretty cheap. For that much, I will gladly take the risk on this. This is another player. I bought a relatively large lot of like 20 base prisms of Garland like a year ago. I've just been sitting on them. And then just recently, I picked up a couple PSA 9s on auction. I picked up a PSA 9 silver prism for like 40 to $50. And I think it was a pink cracked ice for like $25, maybe 30. It might have been 30. It costs $28 to grade now, basically through PSA. 25 if you're getting a good group rate. And then if you're doing bulk, which nobody is because it takes 8 months, like that's 15 a card. So, for me, a PSA graded slab, if the card has any value at all, should be above $25. And I picked that up for like a little between 25 and $30 shipped. So once again, I don't have as much Garland as I do Sexton, but I have recently been picking up more Garland. I bought a bunch of him on Star Stock super cheap prior, like a week or two ago. But I still think, once again, he comes out, he plays well, puts up a couple big games. These prices move fast on these guys. And, I'm not saying hold Garland or any of these guys throughout the entire season. This is, you buy them, you stick them in a drawer, and you see they have a big week and their prices triple. You could sell out of most of them, make your profit. Maybe you pull out your best couple. And if the player hits, then you send those off for grading and sell the rest. Whatever. And if you want to get frisky, you can apply these names to any and all variations. So maybe you want Prism Silvers or Blue Ices or Greens or whatevers. These guys are cheap across the board with variation dependent. Same with PSA 9s and 10s. The purpose of this video is to talk base Prism Raw because the price point's so cheap. Now, here's the thing I will say. I would stay away from other brands. When the price point is this low, I don't think it's worth chasing Optic and Select and Mosaic and whatnot, unless you're getting like Optic Hollows specifically or Select Courtside specifically, or Select or Silvers of any of the 3 tier levels. But I would not go chasing like base Mosaic Darius Garland. When the price point's this low, for $5 a card, you want the Prism because if it does blow up, that's the one that's going to blow up first and blow up the most. And since you're already getting in so cheap, shoot for the fences and go with the base Prism. If you want to get cute and you have a bigger income, go buy Silvers or go buy PSA 10s. A PSA 10 base Garland is like $60. Like if you're just sitting on money and $60 isn't a lot to you and that's a low dollar investment, I don't think that's a bad idea to pick up some of those. So next on the list, and he's getting a little pricey. He's kind of a darling. This is probably one of the most expensive base cards on the list, depending on where you get it at. And that's Keldon Johnson for the Spurs. The theory here is, and I don't know if he's going to start right out the gate or not. I saw he has a minor foot injury that's going to cost him just a little bit of practice time. But I think whether he's starting or not to start the season, I think he's going to be by the end of the season. Because the Spurs probably aren't going to be very good this year. I know everyone says that every year and then they end up being good. But there's a real chance this year they end up blowing this roster up and DeRozan gets traded and LMA gets traded. And then Keldon Johnson gets a bunch of playing time. I think you can also, I did not pull him for this list. He's a little riskier, I think, than KJ and some of the other guys on this list. But I think you could put like a Lonnie Walker on here. He kind of intrigues me a little bit as well, especially for as cheap as he is. But you could get these for about $10 a piece. I saw this one on here for 18. But most of them were going for around 10. Like here's a lot of 4 that went for 50. Here's a lot of 4 that went for 40. Here's 2 that went for 20. And these are all just within the last couple days. 3 that went for 27. Um, then once again, you can get that into the variations if you want to get cute with his red ices and all that stuff, or greens or silvers and whatnot. But his stuff is a little bit pricier because he has been trendy lately. So I don't think you're necessarily getting in at the bargain basement price on him, um, compared to like a Darius Garland or a KPJ. But he does have big upside that people love Spurs rookies. So he'd be a little bit more of an expensive price point, but still under 20 bucks or around 10-ish bucks for a base prism. If you can still find him for that, I think is a good pickup. Next on the list, Mitchell Robinson, darling of the fantasy community. The thought process here is that he's just going to put up monster stat lines. Big guys are limited in terms of their value. They have a ceiling kind of. But I could easily see him putting up like 12 and 25 with like 5 blocks if Thibodeau runs him into the ground. And the theory is that Thibodeau is going to run him into the ground. And you could get into him for pretty cheap. Here's $8 for a base prism, $10 for a base prism. I would have been all over this if I saw it. This is a PSA 9 for $23. Like, okay, that's a steal. Here's one that went for $3. Here's a hyper that went for 15. 3 bases for 30. So you guys get the point. 5 for 40. A red, white, and blue for 10. So you can get into him for pretty cheap. He's trendy. A lot of people like him. So if he puts up a couple big games, I could easily see his prices taking off quick. So for $8 to $10 for his base level prism, I'm on that all day long. Any prism rookie that has a lot of upside for under $10 now is a steal, given what a lot of these prism bases go for. So next up, Wendell Carter Jr. A lot of people have been talking about him lately, and I agree. For the price point that you can get him at, once again, you're looking at under $10 a card. Here's 4 that went for 25. Here's 3 that went for 25. Here's a pink ice that went for 12. Here's a silver, no, not a silver, just another base that went for $8. You can get into him for pretty cheap. Once again, high draft pick, got hurt, terrible situation with that coach, and just all the stuff that was going on with the Bulls. Has a fresh start now, has kind of a trendy team. I don't know that they're going to be good, but they're buzzy. And I can easily see him coming out to what he was hyped up for coming out of the draft. This is kind of his last chance to really do something to earn an extension. At least like a max rookie level extension or whatever he wants to go for. But he's running out of time to prove himself in the league, other than just being like, your random role player big, either off the bench or a fringe starter. So we'll see what ends up happening with him. But once again, for the low dollar price point entry, the pedigree, and the fact that he's on a trendy team on the Bulls, I like that recipe when you mix all those things together. I talk about this all the time, but there is just certain players that people in the hobby I'm just going to say the hobby in general just loves. Bull is one. KPJ is one. MPJ is one. And we saw it when Michael Porter Jr. went off. The fire was already a bunch of dried wood with gasoline poured on top of it, just waiting for a match to be applied to it. That was the MPJ buzz. And he dropped those 30-point games, and it engulfed, and his prices like quintupled in an hour. It was crazy. So there's just these certain guys that are like that. And Wendell Carter is not necessarily like that, but the Bulls in general are, because of Kobe White and Zach LaVine and this, that, and the other thing. And it's the Bulls. So he comes out of the shoot fast. I think his prices could really move. Once again, he could play terribly again, and he could be at the end of the bench, and this could be $2 for a card. But that's the game that we're playing here. Last but not least, this is probably my favorite one on the list, and that's OG Anunoby. He's also been buzzy lately, at least in the fantasy community, and I think it's starting to kind of trickle into sports cards a little bit as well. But you could still get these for about $8 to $10 a piece, give or take, for his base prisms. Here's a PSA 9 that went for $30. I know a guy that got a really good deal on that. That would be me. I bought that card. But yeah, $8, $10, red, white, and blue, 2 of them for $45. A PSA 9 for $30. Really like the PSA 9s for $30. Once again, it's like $25 to grade it. So, you're getting a PSA 9 for basically what they cost to get it graded if you're including like shipping and stuff and insurance to and from PSA. So you scroll down the list here, you can easily get these. Here's a lot of 5 that went for $35. I would have loved to get that. But I think he's going to get a lot more playing time. I remember in DFS last season, whenever Ibaka would sit, uh, OG would get a little bit more run, a little bit more usage rate, and Ibaka's gone now. I know they don't necessarily play the same position, but the way the rotations worked out, and I could see him carving out a bigger and bigger role. He hit that big shot in the playoffs. The Raptors really seem to like him, and I think he's going to get a lot of run. And that Raptors system seems to be really good. They just kind of crank out, very talented players. Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam, et cetera, et cetera. These young guys. Chris Boucher looks like he's going to be the real deal. I would have put, for full purposes, I would have put Chris Boucher on this list. He does not have any rookie cards, or he has like 2, and they're really random and they're kind of expensive. He's just one of those guys that didn't get rookie cards made for him. But if you're in fantasy drafts, I really like that dude as like a very late round pick if you're in a deep draft. I don't know what his ADP is, but keep him on the back of your mind if you're playing like DFS or whatever. So OG's the last one. I really like him once again for the price point. I don't think you can beat it. So that's all I got for you guys today. I just kind of wanted to crank out a quick one here with just some budget friendly guys that if someone's just starting out, or you're just you're still grinding or whatever, and maybe you're not using card money on cards yet, you're not to that point. These are the kind of guys you could take a swing for, and maybe it pays off. But if it doesn't hurt that bad. You get that lot of 5 OG Anunobys for 35 or $40, and he blows up in your face. That's not terrible. If you do that on a Trae Young PSA 10, you're talking about car payments. Here you're talking about skipping Starbucks a few times a month. So that's all I got for you guys today. If there's anyone you think I missed in this group, go ahead and let me know. I can tell you right now, I am not high on like the Hawks role players like Reddish and Hunter. I don't want any part of those two guys like that, and they're already pretty trendy. But these are kind of guys you don't hear a lot of people talking about for the most part. They've kind of been forgotten. So, but if there is anyone else that you think deserves to be on this list, let me know about it. Like, comment, sub, all the YouTube nonsense down below. We will catch you guys on the next one later this week. It'll probably be Thursday. And I'm just going to kind of do a little primer before this preseason starts. Just kind of some things, if you guys weren't around for the NBA bubble games in the summer, or maybe you forgot what that was like, we're just going to have just a little chit chat about that, and some general thoughts on buying and selling during this period. So that's all I got for you guys. Catch you guys on the next one. Peace.